Hi, welcome to Tikkun's weekly podcast. This week's portion is Vayikra. It's the first book in the book of Leviticus, Vayikra. And it talks about the sacrifices, the offerings that were brought in the temple, and it kind of get into a portion, and get into a section in the Bible that we read weekly in the synagogue that's a lot more technical, a lot more technically focused. Nevertheless, a lot of interesting stuff in there, and in particular this week I want to point out what I think is just a really deep idea. It talks about two different types of offerings. An offering that a high priest brings when he makes a mistake, when he transgresses, and an offering that a king brings when he transgresses. And there's a very subtle difference in the language that the Torah uses. The Torah says that when a king transgresses, here's the offering that he should bring. However, when it's talking about the high priest, it says if the high priest transgresses, here's an offering he should bring. And it's interesting why the difference, and I think it's quite clear what that is that the high priest, his role was to be in the temple all day in a place of holiness, a place of connection, godliness. And it's kind of easy. It's kind of easy to live in that environment, and easy to stay holy, stay pure, stay on a certain spiritual level when you're closed up in a place like that. So when talking about the high priest, it says if he transgresses. However, that's in sharp contrast to the king. The king plays a very different role in Jewish life. He's out there. He's the secular person, the secular leader of the Jewish people, not the spiritual leader. He's got to be out there dealing with the world, dealing with politicians, dealing with the army and fighting and wars. He's got to deal with evil dictators. He's got to deal with the day-to-day running of mundane things. You add on to that the fact that the king in Jewish law is the supreme leader of the Jewish people. He really runs the entire show. There's a lot of potential there for him to get distracted, by arrogance and move off in directions like that, and it happened throughout Jewish history. The Torah therefore says when the king transgresses, he is going to. It's not an excuse. It's just a warning of the collective potential of power, and in particular the power of the king. What's interesting though, and here's what I want to point out, is the Torah, the rabbis talk about which is a greater crown. Who's a greater person, the king or the high priest? Who's more important? And the rabbis say that the king's crown is greater. The king's position is more significant. And the reason for that, in my mind, he's a greater person. We respect him more. We show more respect towards him. The reason, in my mind, for that is the king puts himself on the line for the people. He puts his own spiritual development, his own spiritual growth on the line for the sake of his nation. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to get caught up in things that he shouldn't, and he knows that's the case when he starts, and he does it nevertheless. The high priest's got a cushy job. It's not as easy as it sounds, but he's in a spiritual environment, he's in a holy place, great place to be. The king makes more sacrifices. The king puts himself more on the line on behalf of the nation than the high priest does, and we consider him greater as a result. You see, greatness for a human being is not the result that you achieve. It's what you put into it. It's the self-sacrifice that you had to go through in order to make a difference, in order to be able to do what you did. The Jewish people kind of has this concept of our being a light to the nations. That's kind of how we see ourselves. That's what we want to do with our lives, with our peoplehood. That means being out there. That means being out in the world. That means being out in the secular world, involved, engaged. There's potential to make mistakes. It would be easier to lock ourselves up in a nice little synagogue, in a nice little learning hall, in a study hall, and just kind of spend all day doing that. But that's not what leads us to being that light, to setting that example. Those risks are part of the self-sacrifice that you have to make, that you are required to make, if you genuinely want to make a difference in the world. I wish you Shabbat Shalom. If you're interested in finding more about Tikkun, please log on to our website, tikkun.co.uk. Thank you.